Hey guys, it's your girl RachTheGreat, and I am here to go over kind of like Ancestors 101 with you all. So buckle up, let's get into it. So the first question that a lot of people ask me are like, what are your ancestors? Who are your ancestors? Are the ancestors evil? So short answer, your ancestors are not evil. Long answer long answer is your ancestors are exactly who they were before they passed. So your ancestors are people or being spirits that are directly connected to your bloodline. Now, some ancestors were assigned to your life for the sole purpose of helping you, right? As well as you helping them. Now, I know a lot of my followers grew up in church, so this may sound like a completely different like theme or idea than what we were necessarily taught. But when you die, you don't necessarily go straight to hell. Just pause, let that breathe right there. Let it lay where it must. So when somebody crosses over and they pass, the first year that they are dead, they are essentially getting themselves adjusted to living on that side, to being fully spirit. Okay. So during that time, though, because going back to the Bible and we understand what God had promised, after hell is the lake of fire. So because there is an after hell, there is still opportunities and times to fix your karma, to right your
What
wrongs.
does that mean
before that lake of fire
That
comes
means
to fruition? That while you yourself are on your spiritual journey, while you are healing, while you are growing, while you are identifying the things within you and your family that seems to be a pattern and things that is hard and difficult to break, you are acknowledging the behavior that needs to be broken. All right, you are acknowledging the root cause of the dysfunction within your family. Okay, and a lot of times it is systemic, but it also is based off of the decisions that we've made as human beings in response to these systems being put into place. For example, one of my ancestors was raised as a sharecropper post slavery days, but like during the Jim Crow era, right? So when he was growing up, he witnessed not only his mother be abused by white men, but his mother be abused by his father. So he had a understanding of women and didn't necessarily care about women. So the women on his bloodline, on that side of my family, have very difficult and terrible relationships with men. And they feel like they need to be very in control because for a lot of times they were not in control because of the damage that had been done by my great grandfather. Right? But I understand why the damage was done and completed because he grew up in a society which framed his mind to say, you are at least better than a woman, black woman necessarily, but you are not better than white men. So he projected his anger and his
Now, what does that
violence
mean to
onto
me?
the closest women
That
to him,
means to me
which was his
that
family.
I
am able to identify where the trauma comes from, and I get to choose whether I will subscribe to remaining in the traumatized cycle or not. Okay? Understanding our ancestors is really just understanding where the trauma comes from. And there will be a point or a day where I have to sit down and I'm in a meditative state and I'm communicating with him to help him work through that trauma so that he can then transition over to whatever is next for him on that other side. So what does this mean? Where are our ancestors on this spiritual hierarchy? Okay, so of course we know creator source. Of course we heard of angels, right? And there are different types of angels, cherubim, seraphim, all types of archangels, right? But our ancestors would be lower level entities, lower level beings. Why? Because they are still in constant communication with us. They are waiting for us. And in fact, when we feed them, we give them power. Just waiting around them, which we give them purpose. Otherwise happen other than we did not venerate our ancestors. So I want you to take a moment and think about all of the ancestors that have come before you and your family. Okay, if you are the first person to venerate your ancestors in your family, in your bloodline, think about how many ancestors actually have not been put to work, have not been fulfilling their purpose while being on that other line, while being on the other side, because we on this side were not even able to have enough information to want to reverence our ancestors. A lot of times that comes from the church, right? And being taught things were being wrong necessarily about our Black traditions. And I say our Black traditions because it has nothing to do with being African, Caribbean, American, whatever. Our traditions had been stolen from us because we were relocated, forcefully relocated from our homes. So we were forcefully disconnected from our roots, from our traditions, and how we dealt with our people and the connections we had with our people. This is technically another reason why I can't necessarily subscribe to everything that is taught in American churches or in Christian churches in general, because a lot of times we do not talk about venerating our ancestors. We do not talk about remembering our past and honoring our past as much as we do talk about honoring holidays, right? And honoring Christmas, things of that nature. So getting back to kind of what I said about the hierarchy, that's not sources up here and angels are here. We are here and our ancestors would be kind of below us, but in between at the same time, only because they do have the ability to do work on the other side for us, as above, so below, right? And so we have to reach out to them in order for them to reach out back to us, though, okay? It's a balance. And so they can't do anything that we want them to without us putting in the work and being consistent doing those work, okay? The next question I get often is, what are the requirements for working with your ancestors? How do you choose your ancestors? What do you do if, like, you're an orphan and have no connection to your family at all or your bloodline? What I would say is begin with one person, one thing, one get being. Acquainted with, begin with writing, yourself, with journaling, begin with your memories, sitting still and alone in a quiet space for prolonged amounts of time. Okay, start to research meditations and things of that nature. Why? Because you want to train yourself to be quiet. We have to shut off these fleshly senses in order to open up our spiritual senses, okay? And so no matter what kind of work you're doing, ancestral work, healing work, inner child work, this is kind of the base for all of it. And it's being able to digest your thoughts, to process your thoughts, and then ask those thoughts where they came from, right? Going back in time and remembering as much as you can remember and dealing with yourself first. Why? Because you can't conjure up an ancestor to say, hey, mom, you caused me trauma and I want you to fix it. They're already passed over. You already have enough power within you to heal yourself, and you have to stop putting that in other people's hands, because that's not the whole point. The point of venerating your ancestors is not to strengthen them, if you understand what I'm saying, or give them the power to heal you, or call on them to do things, but you are calling on them and sending them out to do things. You are giving them purpose. You are telling them what to do. It's very much like, almost like if you can picture your ancestors as almost like runners, but we have way more respect for them than just somebody who's a bellhop. But they would be like a spiritual bellhop for you, okay? And please, 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 please don't drag me in the comments and be like, oh, your ancestors are not like that, blah, 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 blah. But when we think about, when we boil down, I'm trying to just make it as plain as day. When we boil down the process and we boil down exactly what we're asking our ancestors to do, and the core of our relationship with our ancestors, it is a give and a take. Okay? We have to honor them every week, consistently. That is us sacrificing our time. That is us spending time with them. That is us spending time with ourselves. But what does that do in return? In return, that frees up the space, because we are now focusing our energy on ourselves and making, like, if you think about the law of attraction, the more time we spend working on ourselves, getting acquainted with ourselves, getting acquainted with our spirits, the more doors open up in the natural that are exactly what we want. Okay, so we're going into like the manifestation part. A lot of people work with their ancestors because they want certain manifestations, and I need to get linked up with my ancestors so that I can manifest what I want. But that's the wrong mindset. You can manifest what you want, period. That's why you have your ancestors. I'll let that breathe. You can manifest what you want already, which is why you have ancestors. So give yourself a space and a time. Start journaling. Start writing down your thoughts. Start writing down your memories. And when you are remembering certain things, you will hear a certain voice. You will start seeing things. Write down everything. Nothing is insignificant. Okay, if I'm seeing a picture of like a baseball right now, or some kind of ball, soccer ball, something like that. So somebody that's watching this may say, oh my goodness, like I used to play soccer with my uncle. My uncle passed away 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever the case may be. Then that is an ancestor that is reaching out to you. Pay attention to the signs. If you start paying attention to the signs, you'll start putting pieces together, right? Nothing is too hard for you. Nothing is so random that it doesn't matter. There's no such thing as coincidence, okay? Everything comes to you for a reason, and it's up to you to put the pieces together for your life. So that's how your ancestors will kind of communicate with you, okay? I want to end this video with talking about altars, because a lot of people are getting caught up on altars, and as I mentioned before, I know a lot of my people are previously Christian people, so building an altar kind of is like, woo, all the way out there, nothing that we know about. And I really just want you guys to remember that as long as God sits on the altar of your heart, and you know that God sits on the altar of your heart, you have nothing to be worried about, okay? You are not worshiping your ancestors. You are honoring them. Okay, the same way we're supposed to honor Jesus by doing communion every month, and a lot of people don't even do that, right? We are honoring the people who literally blood, sweat, and tears got us here, right? And we do it every day. We do it when someone passes and we pour a drink out for them. We do it when we meet up for Mookie's birthday every week or every month, every year, and put a party together, or we stand by the corner where somebody died and put balloons. That is physically building altars and remembering those people. Okay, so I would suggest, if you are on that spectrum of feeling a little nervous, a little shaky, that you do not think about building an altar, because you don't have to. It is something that you will get to eventually in your spiritual journey, but you want to wait until you have that constant communication with spirit, with yourself, in order to even gain an understanding of what your ancestors would want on there, right? Give yourself some time to learn about your spirituality, your spiritual beliefs. What do you believe? What do you think? Right? Without judgment, without anybody else's input, what do you believe to be true? And once you start writing that down and working on that and finding a balance within yourself, you will then say, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready for this next step. So for my people who are not necessarily there, but maybe a step up, but not completely ready to commit to making a full-fledged altar either, I always suggest a glass of water and a white candle. And you could even do one of those tea light candles. But just light the candle every day. When you're sitting down journaling, have a glass of water out, sit it out, let your spirit know that you honor the spirit enough to set out a light, to set out water. Those are things that are also found in churches. So that has been consistent amongst religions. Candles, water, some type of holy oil, right? At least. And I'm somebody who I'm very well rounded, so I have crystals, and to me the crystals represent the earth, right? So fire, earth, water, and your air. We have our petitions, we pray, we meditate, we're doing these things. So all of that is correlated into just like your ancestors, your connection with your ancestors, and who you want to be and who they are waiting for you to be. Okay? Because they can't do the work until you're consistent. They can't contact you until you're consistent. You won't know that they're contacting you until you're consistent. So just keep that in your mind. Keep that in your brain while you're racking your brain over and over and over. And just understand, like, until you start dealing with you and being okay with you individually, by yourself, you were born alone, you're going to die alone. That is when your spiritual world will crack open. So I hope that helped. If you have any questions or, any concerns or you disagree with something I said, leave a comment in the comment section. Let's talk about it. See y'all later.